The Closer Walk by Gerhard Tersteegen. The lodestone of his love has touched and magnetized the iron, I mean the needle of our spirit. Its desire and its whole tendency is toward him and him alone. But oh, how restless, how trembling the poor needle becomes when a strange power, or some intermediary stops it, or seems to stop it, from going where it will. Let be. It longs to go there, longs intensely. He who draws it to himself knows that it looks to him, and him alone, and his power of attraction is enough to bring all opposition to naught, so that at last the spirit may yield itself freely, and be inwardly at one with him. Give yourselves over to God and to his unhindered will for time and eternity. Drop all anxiety for yourselves, so that you would no longer want to look to yourselves, even if you knew that you were on the road to hell. What do yourselves matter? What does the self matter? Just think. Suppose your wretched state became still worse, and continued till death, and you are damned for eternity. Accept it all, and say, nevertheless, I will not sin. Nevertheless, I will still love and glorify God. What do I matter? Dispose yourself in this way in every situation in which the soul may find herself. In this way, surrender leads into pure love, and your bitter, restless motions will pass into a deep and gentle peace, and your oppression into an immeasurable breadth and freedom of the spirit. The inner will must not keep swaying in the balance, but swing right over to the side of God. Then God will give it invincible strength. Oh, if only we came close to our God in faith and love, whole mountains of hindrances, miseries, and weaknesses would disappear like a mere straw in a great fire. If he only has the heart, the thoughts will follow it in the end. All good intentions, impulses, desires, or thoughts are not our own productions, but God's working in us, which we must neither suppress nor avoid, but accept and remain in it. We must not think as if God worked good in us only at one particular time, and then went away, leaving us in the lurch to carry on by ourselves. By no means. At the very moment when we find a good intention, desire, or impulse in ourselves, and for as long as we find it in ourselves, there is the Lord our God, inwardly near, making it and keeping it, the true source of all good within us. He creates in us the will to good, and desires most heartily to bring the good in us to fruition, but in accordance with his good pleasure, not our own ideas. We should simply remain in God in all fidelity, giving full scope to his working in us, and continually expecting new powers while we remain in him, the source. Yes, even when we experience our own weakness and disloyalty, instead of losing heart, we should turn inwards once again, and with bowed head seek the strength for renewal at the right place. A man must first find his soul before he can lose it. Otherwise, his loss is only a fancied loss, and really does him harm. This loss or abandonment of the self in God is a pure and noble work of God, which, at the cost of distress and death to one's own life, transplants the soul into God. When I hear anyone talk cheerfully and even jocularly about this, I think I have reason to believe that such a one has not yet had the experience. Only very few souls really attain to it, for the majority require a very different diet. In some cases, self-love seizes hold of the ideal, regarding it as a prize. But this kind of loss and surrender only produces a fluttering, frivolous character. Such souls talk about loss, but obviously they still hold fast and live completely in themselves. Now, because I know that the soul is never transferred to God and his life, except by God himself and his working within, and that God cannot work freely when we do not worship him by suffering and keeping a quiet mind, I recommend to everyone contemplation and prayer according to his ability, whether he works or suffers.